Okay, now that we've got the token logic, there's a couple of things we need to do. First of all, we need to create this token key. Otherwise, we're going to run into our first exception, as we will not be able to access a token key if we do not create it. And we're going to go to our configuration to do this. So I'm just going to close all of this stuff down. And inside the API folder, we have our configuration files, two of them. We've got our app-settings.json and our app-settings-development.json. And which one do we use for our secret token key that we don't want anyone else to read? Well, we know that our app-settings-development.json, we're sending that up to a public GitHub repository. And should we have private secret information inside here, such as our token key? And for development, we could say this is our development token key and have a different one for production, so technically that could be fine. But just for example's sake, I'm going to put this inside the app-settings.json file. So just below the login, I'm going to specify token key, add a colon, and then this needs to be a super secret, unguessable key. And I know that's less than 64 characters, but I just want to make the point and demonstrate what happens if we do not have a longer than 64 character token key. So I'll keep that as it is for the time being. And we're going to return this when we either log in or we register. So inside our account controller, currently what we're returning is from our endpoints the app user object. And we know that our app user contains things like, if I open up the app user, the password hash and password salt. We don't want to return that to our users. So we're going to create a user DTO that contains just the information that we want to return. And what we are going to return is just the username and the token. We're not even going to return the ID. So this is a good use case for a DTO. And inside the DTOs folder, I'm going to create a new file, which is going to be a class, and I'm going to call it User DTO. And inside here, we're just going to return two things. We're going to have a prop that is a string for the username. And once again, I'm going to keep the username as lowercase. There was a reason for doing it this way inside the app user, by the way. And later on, when we use .NET identity, then that provides us with a username, and that is the casing that it uses. It just makes our life a little bit easier if we use this casing for username inside this class. But it's not a big deal if you didn't do it that way. I'm just saying there is a reason that I did it this way for this one. But I prefer to use username with this casing everywhere else. And this is going to be a required property. We do not want to return the user object without the username. And we'll also have another string for the token. And again, this is going to be required. So inside our account controller, we'll make use of this, and we need to inject our token service. Don't forget we're using an interface, so we need to use the interface for dependency injection. So I'm going to use the iToken service and call it token service. I'm pretty certain actually you're going to get an exception if you try and use the implementation class when we have defined it to use an interface in our program.cs. So you do need to use the interface if you have created it and if you have defined it inside your services, like so. So do make sure it's the iToken service, not the token service here. Then inside our register methods, instead of returning user, we're going to return a new user DTO. And we're going to specify the username equal to the user.username. And the token, we're going to set to the token service and say create token and then pass the user. Now we're getting an error here because we do have a little bit of type safety inside our API controllers, and if we hover over the error, it tells us it cannot implicitly convert user DTO to app user. And that's because we've specified in the type information up here, we're returning an app user. That is not the case. We are now returning a user DTO. And then the error should go away. And inside the login, we'll also do the same thing here. We're going to return a user DTO. And For the return itself, we're going to say return user DTO or new user DTO and specify the username as user.username, and the token will be the token service.createToken, and we'll pass that to the user. And I have no confidence that hot reloading will have done anything good here. And in fact, it tells me I need to restart the app. So I'm going to say yes to this and let the app rebuild and restart. And once that has started, we can go test. Now I'm expecting to get an error the first time that we try this. I'm going to try logging in as Dave, the user that I've still got in the body of this request. And if I click send, then what we should get is an exception. And it says your token key needs to be longer. And the exceptions are quite helpful. They can be quite nasty if you look down at all of the different stack trace here. But typically in the first couple of lines, it tells us exactly where the problem is. It says your token key needs to be longer. Obviously, we created this message on token service line 14. If we go and take at line 14 of the token service, then we will find, and I'll need to open this, the token service. Then on line 14, then sure. This is the exception that we checked for based on the key length of the token. So we need to make our token key longer. Otherwise, if it's less than 64, it definitely will not work. So I could say that if I just copy this and paste it, that's definitely longer than 64. And if I retest in Postman and run this request again, this time we get success. Now my token key is long enough, and what we have is a JSON web token. So if we just copy this entire string, we can go and take a look at its contents. So if we head to our browser, and if we go to a website called jwt.io, then this is a site that will allow us to effectively paste in our token and it will decode it. So if we come into the encoded section, we'll just copy this and paste in our token. And then we've got the details about the different parts of our token, specifically the token header, what algorithm was used to encrypt the signature of the token, and then the type of token, well, this is a JWT. And then we've got the payload, the data that's contained inside the token. So we've got the name identifier with the claim that we made about our user, their username. And this user is called Dave. We have a couple of date properties. Not before, the token is not valid before this date, when the token expires, and when the token was issued at. And then we've also got the signature. This last part is the signature. This part is encrypted, and we cannot decrypt this without knowing what the token key is. If we know what the token key is, then we can decrypt this token, and then we could fake a request as another user, but only if we know that token key, which is why that token key needs to be securely stored on our server. So now that we've confirmed that we can get a token back for our users, next we'll see how we can use this to authenticate to our API endpoints.